I have a confession to make. I love Sonic games. My first experience with Sonic the Hedgehog was Sonic Classic Collection on the Nintendo DS in 2010. I have fond memories of not being able to get past Angel Island Zone, Mushroom Hill Zone, and Marble Zone, but none of Sonic 2. Unfortunately, it's really hard to pinpoint the best parts of this series at times. I have intense nostalgia for Sonic Adventure, but I groan every time I get to Lost World. I adore Sonic Mania, but Titanic Monarch is just not that fun. So, in order to find out what I loved about Sonic, I have decided to go back and look at all of the Sonic games, or a select few at least. And where better to start than the original Sonic the Hedgehog? You've heard it all before. Nintendo had a monopoly over the video game market with Mario in the 80s, and Sega wanted a piece of that gaming pie. Not long after the release of Super Mario Bros. 3, Sega held an in-house contest for a new mascot, because Alex Kidd wasn't really that exciting. As I'm sure you know, Sonic won this contest, and some other planned character designs were recycled for Dr. Robotnik and other characters. And so, Sonic was released to the world on June 23rd, 1991, leading to 3 decades of disappointment. Revisiting the classics, I have studied every level to try and figure out what makes them fun. What did I figure out? That I love Sonic games. Just not the first. Let's take a look at it. Sonic is hard to describe. Is it a platformer? Kinda, but you'd be hard pressed to find another platformer that reaches Sonic's speed. How do you describe the game? Well, to begin, you open in Green Hill Zone. This standard grass level isn't quite like one you'd find in, say, Super Mario. The entire level is covered in checkerboards. There are enemies, but they are robotic, lifeless versions of standard forest critters that shoot lasers at Sonic. There are no power-up boxes, no life tanks, no question mark blocks. Just item monitors, grass, and deadly metal creatures. Oh, and the music! Hardly a soothing lullaby, the music is fast-paced, with tempo not dissimilar to that of racing games at the time, very quick and upbeat. Something that should be mentioned is just how often this zone has reappeared. After Sonic 1, it was in the 8-bit Sonic 1, Sonic Drift, Sonic Blast, Sonic Jam, Sonic Adventure 2, Sonic Adventure 2 Battle, Sonic Jump, Smash Brawl, Jump 2, Chronicles, Generations, Jump Fever, Smash 4, Mario, Sonic 2014, Dash, Run Adventure, you get the point. People are starting to get sick of Green Hill. But it is important to view Green Hill Zone in a light that ignores the foresight of its later overuse. Ignoring that allows us to review this zone in a more positive manner, because let's be honest, Green Hill is peak Sonic 1, a peak that the game would get very close to replicating, but never quite there. I think that's a testament to how good of a first level Green Hill is. Green Hill is an amazing zone to run through, and that comes down to 2 things, physics and level design. Sonic has physics, this is obvious. It's also obvious that momentum is an incredibly important part of Sonic's control. Everyone has said this, and I really shouldn't have to reiterate it again. But I will. Sonic's momentum is paired with a unique collection of stage pieces that blend together to create a smooth, speedy experience. Green Hill, and subsequent levels in the series, are jam-packed full of loops, springs, slopes, trampolines, bumpers, and more. These, combined with Sonic's control, can create a chaotic mess for those who aren't experienced, but for those who take the time to master the playstyle, it is amazing. On top of that, stages in Sonic are filled to the brim with secrets, and this is best exemplified by Green Hill itself. You can run straight to the end, taking the linear path, or you can explore the stage for extra lives, shields, speed shoes, and invincibility sparkles. Granted, you still have to go fast. You die if you take more than 10 minutes to beat any act of any level, but you should have no problem exploring lots and still finding your way to the goal in time. And that comes down to the clever level design. Rings are strewn out in a way that looks random, but in reality they guide you towards areas that you should be heading in. Even if you want to take the linear path, there are multiple ways to do so. In Green Hill Act 1, there are 2 distinct paths, generally referred to as the upper and lower paths. The lower path is generally easier to stick to, enemies can't knock you off it, mostly, but that comes at a cost. The upper path has far more item monitors for you to find and smash open, and also provides a clearer, often quicker route to the goal, but you can be knocked off of it easily. Even if you fall from the top path, you can use small platforms to climb up in certain areas, or even cleverly combine Sonic speed, a speed choose power up, and a slope to jump up to tremendous heights, because if he's fast enough, jumping off a slope can launch Sonic towards your destination. Another important collectible is rings. Not only do they keep Sonic alive, acting as a sort of shield, but collecting 50 of them in any Act 1 or 2 of a zone, except Scrap Brain Zone for some reason, grants the player the ability to try and net themselves a Chaos Emerald. Green Hill Zone is, to me, one of the most fun levels to replay in any video game ever, up there with Bob-omb Battlefield, World 1-1 and Chemical Plant Zone. Green Hill Zone is the perfect start to Sonic the Hedgehog. Well, that was a good start, so it's all going to be uphill from here, right? Well, no. According to the former head of Sonic Team, Yuji Naka, Marble Zone was intended to give players a chance to breathe between the speedy stages. I understand the sentiment to give players downtime between high action stages, but that is exactly where Marble Zone fails. Marble Zone is slow, correct. However, this does not make it relaxing, far from it. Green Hill Zone was also designed with chances to breathe in mind. There are still slow, platforming oriented sections in Green Hill, in between all the speedy loops and springs. The problem with Marble Zone is that this slowdown is forced for the entire level. Marble isn't fully linear, no. There are still secrets hidden behind fake walls, but there aren't the two distinct paths, and there isn't very much speed. No loops, no springs, just blocks. Block puzzles, vanishing blocks, lava raft blocks. There are significant periods of time just taken up by waiting periods, so nothing. There are spikes that rise and fall, but you will never arrive on time. You have to wait for them to rise, wait for them to fall. There is no way to get past it quickly. You have to wait. Even the secrets that are here are either behind walls that one wouldn't think to check normally, or, well, that's it. I've only ever found 2 secrets in Marble Zone. The secret routes last 2 seconds and only contain an extra life or a few rings. The quickest way to get through Marble Zone is to purposefully take damage, quickly collect a ring to use as a shield, take damage again, and repeat all the way through the lava. If players have to take damage to go fast in a Sonic level, it is not a good Sonic level. Granted, first time players are highly unlikely to take such a risk, but someone who has played before and doesn't want to wait is likely to do this. Of course, those who want to get the special stages before the next zone also wouldn't do this, but this just brings about the question, why isn't there a separate path? There are tiny parts of Marble Zone taking place outside that are speedy. Why couldn't there be a separate path that is like this for the entire level, instead of taking up maybe 15% of each act, while the rest is a boring wait over lava pits, or obnoxious lava columns, or spike platforms, or blocks that Sonic has to effectively drill through? It just doesn't make any sense. Oh boy, I sure am glad that this is the only bad stage in Sonic 1. There is, however, a light at the end of this tunnel. Spring Yard is everything the outside parts of Marble Zone dreamed of being. This zone is filled with bumpers, springs, and a new set piece, half-pipes. There are several areas that are filled with half-pipes and bumpers, and they are a blast to play with. This zone is probably the closest the game gets to feeling like Green Hill again. There are numerous ways to run through the level, plenty of secrets hidden around, and now you get to outrun the slow blocks. It's very satisfying to roll through the half-pipes and shoot upwards, maybe even over a wall to a secret area. There are small waiting sections involving rising and lowering blocks, but even these are generally avoidable if the player is careful. There is this rolling badnik that suddenly appears after Sonic goes down a long slope, who can catch you off guard, kind of annoying. But luckily there's a spring ready to spin Sonic into the badnik, just destroying it. Unfortunately, if Sonic isn't spinning, the bot will almost instantly hit him, either taking away a player's life, or their chance to grab a Chaos Emerald. But you know what, that's really the only bad part of the stage, it's fine. Well, actually, I still have a few more problems. Spring Yard comes close to being Green Hill levels of awesome, but still falls short. There are strange badnik placements that seem designed to get you even though you couldn't see them beforehand, the aforementioned rising and lowering blocks. While I still love Spring Yard Zone, the problem is that it takes elements from both Green Hill and Marble Zone, which brings the whole zone down. Maybe the next stage is better? Oh, where do I begin with this zone? Have you ever talked to anyone who actually likes Labyrinth Zone? 'Cause I sure haven't. This level is what you get if you take a marble zone, remove the smaller faster sections, and put it underwater. Not only that, but being the 4th out of 6 zones, they had to ramp up the difficulty here. This leads to unfair badnik placements, strange spinning spikes that hide in walls, fire-breathing decorations, and spikes that you couldn't have possibly seen. Sonic can't swim, is incredibly slow underwater, and will drown if you don't find a water bubble within about 30 seconds. This means that you have to slowly trudge through the water, dodge way too many obstacles and traps, and search for bubbles for the entire stage. The most amount of time Sonic will spend out of water is about half a minute at a time. This stage is like Marble Zone, in that the extra paths are gone, apart from one really obscure one in Act 3, and the entire stage is linear. No secrets, no exploration, more waiting. Yay. It doesn't help that many of the traps here are spikes, which completely ignore Sonic's invincibility frames in the original game. If you're hit and fall onto spikes, you die. I hate Labyrinth Zone more than anything else in this game. It's just bad. Some people might say it's overhated because, well, everyone seems to hate it, and they hate it for good reason. It sucks! Starlight Zone is probably the most forgettable zone in the game, which is kind of a shame. It's a nice vibe. This zone is similar to Spring Yard, but worse. There are lots of bottomless pits and obnoxious invincible bombs thrown in that make players entirely disregard the zone. It doesn't even come close to Green Hill or even Spring Yard. Granted, it is the 3rd most fun stage in the game, but is that saying much when the others are Marble, Labyrinth, and... oh no. Scrap Rain is a step up from Labyrinth, to say the least. No water, no dumb spikes, but lots of other strange choices. Bottomless pits, disappearing platforms, sudden electrical attacks in tight corridors. Because it's the last zone in the game, it has to be hard. Unfortunately, that isn't executed well here. Not at all. Act 3 is just a grayscale version of Labyrinth Zone. Of course, it's the final act in the game, so it's obnoxiously difficult. Bottomless pits, extremely long water sections, sudden traps, bubbles that take even longer to appear than they did in Labyrinth, and super slow water physics. Yay! If you lose all of your lives in this zone and have no continues, it's not like you go back to the start of the zone. No, you have to replay the entire game. The game ends with Final Zone, which is fine. Even with no rings, the boss is pretty easy, but honestly, Scrap Brain Act 3 may as well have been the final boss with how painful it is. I mentioned earlier that collecting 50 rings in Act 1 or 2 of most zones will unlock special stages. In the special stages, the player can find Chaos Emeralds, and collecting 50 rings inside a special stage gets them to continue. Basically, a free respawn after a game over. I'll be honest here, the special stages in Sonic 1 aren't great. In fact, I'd even call them bad. The special stages spin at all times. There are bumpers to bounce Sonic around, special bumpers that rotate the stage in the opposite direction, or even speed up the spinning. Even better is that there are many chances to get kicked out of the stage by goal bumpers. One of the later stages literally has a bumper placed so that if the player doesn't move within 1 second, they will be bumped into the goal bumper, kicking them out of the stage. Considering the player only has about 10 chances to get the 6 emeralds, and any continues they desire, this just seems heavily flawed. Besides, good luck keeping 50 rings in any stage that isn't Green Hill or maybe Spring Yard. You can try to not take damage through Marble or Labyrinth, but you'll certainly have a hard time. I'll be honest, whenever I play Sonic 1, I almost always stop playing after Green Hill, or occasionally Spring Yard if I feel like getting through Marble Zone. The game has many issues, some of them unavoidable and some of them of the time. For example, poor frame rate in parts, no saves, and the 4:3 aspect ratio hiding enemies until it's just too late. The level design in Unity in Sonic 1 certainly isn't perfect, not even close. There are always little problems that build up and ruin the overall experience of almost any stage. A lot of these issues were fixed, however, in possibly the best port of Sonic 1 ever created, and the definitive way to play. The 2013 mobile port. This port fixes many bugs, including the spikes one, adds a save system, a time attack option, makes the game run in 16:9, that being widescreen, and even adds Tails and Knuckles as unlockable characters. Even the spin dash from Sonic 2 is here. And for a long time, nearly 10 years, this was the only way to play the definitive experience of Sonic 1 on mobile. That was until 2022, when Sonic Origins was released on all platforms. This uses the mobile port, adds the drop dash from Sonic Mania and Amy Rose as a playable character, and adds so many cool unlockable extras that this is by far the definitive way to play Sonic 1. The save system is by far the best new addition in these versions. No more required continues, no more having to collect the emeralds on every playthrough, no more frame rate issues, no more running straight into enemies, well, less of that last one. The level design hasn't changed much, but cool secrets have been added that only Tails and or Knuckles can reach. Those two can also make Marble and Labyrinth Zone a much less painful experience. They even added Super Sonic into the game. It's clear that with this port, Sonic 1 isn't a bad game. Far from it. If it can be heavily improved by just a few changes, mostly quality of life stuff, then it is a testament to how good this game actually is. Sure, some areas like Labyrinth and Scrap Brain are still painfully difficult, but not as painful with this version. There we have it. Sonic 1 isn't a perfect game, but it is clear that it had amazing potential, and that is reflected in the rest of the series. There are a few confusing design choices, but Sonic Team would go on to fully refine Sonic in the following games in the classic trilogy. And Sonic CD.